it up.
Hello.
Hi, Ken.
Hi, Ken.
Ken?
How you doing today? Can't quite
Okay.
hear some of you, but let me see if I can turn the voice up on. Try that.
Yeah. We're doing okay. How are you doing? Can you
Good.
hear us okay?
Just finished. Yep, just got home, finished working on some hay for tomorrow and the next day.
All right. It's a beautiful day for it.
Yes, it was. Let's hope it don't rain tomorrow.
Fingers crossed.
Before you had, but during your meeting at some point in time, you hold a moment of silence for 9/11.
I'm okay with that. Absolutely.
Sure. I guess we can do that. Again, I'm trying to rename you, but I'm not finding a way to do that. Let's see.
I wouldn't worry about it, Mark.
Since we know his number. Okay. Darn. I thought that was a pretty easy thing to do. Anyway, great. So welcome everybody. This is the September 9th town board meeting, a town of Caroline board meeting. And so I guess I'll first, I guess the first item of business is if anybody does want to address the board, there's opportunity. So if you do want to address the board, then go to your participants rectangle and choose your blue Zoom hand, if you would. I'm not seeing anything. So with that, I will move on to additions or deletions from the agenda. I would like to add a brief discussion of the Brookton Cemetery status and our thoughts about that. So I'll put that at the end of our business meeting for tonight. Does anybody else have anything? Great. Okay. Thank you. I also I will also call an executive session to discuss personnel process with the code officer's position. Great. Okay. So welcome everybody. So as you know, we have formed a task force to investigate land use guidance tools that may be recommended by that appear to be recommended by the revised comprehensive plan. And so we've put out a call for applicants. We interviewed a number of people last week. Ken Miller had indicated an interest and was not able to join us then, so he's joining us tonight for his interview. So welcome, Ken. So Ken, I guess I will start off by just circling back to what I just said about the task force and the mission. And I noticed in your application you mentioned an interest in, representing landowner rights. I guess I'm given that how you would integrate that with the mission of the task force to investigate development guidance tools for the town. Are you there, Ken?
Unmute.
Oh, wow. Sorry, Ken. He does not look muted, but I'll ask him to unmute. Okay, it is a.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
All right. Somehow it got muted, I guess. But
Great.
before I try to answer your question there, if can someone like myself stop at the town hall during one of these meetings beforehand and get on something that you have? They have to have their own phone. They have to have a smartphone or something so that they can be seen and do the things like raising a hand or whatever you do on this. And that be done from the town hall. And what does a person have to do it?
Well, I guess what really, I mean, none of us are at the town hall, but what we do have is open Wi-Fi access. So if you needed broadband access, that is available from the parking lot at the town hall. Accessing Zoom by your computer is a fairly straightforward process. So other than that, you know, we're not at this point. We're not holding in-person board meetings.
No. But does that require then over at the town hall on the Wi-Fi a smartphone?
Yeah, you would need, unless you wanted to just call in like you're doing now, you would need a phone that has the capability to access the internet and has a camera that, and you know, ideally has a camera that would show your face, but.
Okay, well, I don't have that. All right, try to answer your question. Landowner rights, depends on what is brought up. I think that there are a lot of laws that the town has that affect landowners, and a lot of landowners, when they buy a home or when they buy land, they feel that this is mine. This is something that I own. And to possibly throw something at them that says, now that you have this, we're changing some of the rules and you'll be required to follow them, I think can upset some people. So what I feel is that being a landowner, I can look at things in a different light than some other people might look at, and add encouragement or discouragement to some things.
Okay, so given the, you know, that the mission of the task force is to investigate, excuse me, land use development guidance tools that would, you know, would guide development in the town. Is that something that you could devote yourself to?
Yes, I've thought quite a bit about it. Reading this draft of the 2020 comprehensive plan and listening to some of the minutes that the planning board has put together, there's numerous ways, I think, to restrict certain things in a positive way. There seems to be a fight over commercial business coming in. You know, well then put some restrictions. If you have lighting, it has to be a certain way. If you have, obviously, I mean, we're concerned about safety. DOT has to be coming off the roads. Just trying to think of some other things. Durability of the building. You know, is it a tent they're putting up, or is it a brick and mortar? How big is it going to be? We may want to restrict the size of something. Some of these things, brick and mortar, hey, to them and asked, could you put siding on this that would make this more scenic rather than brick and mortar? Does that help you a little bit without going into a lot of details?
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, it does. And I think that those kinds of ideas are precisely the kinds of ideas that we want the committee to research and reflect on and present ideas for possible ways to go forward.
Well, then I feel I'm on the right track. Don Barber said to me a short time ago, he was talking to me about some of this land use, and his sentence to me was, if, as a neighbor, if I don't like what you're doing and you're selling land, then I should buy it, own it, so that I can do what I want to do with it, and not have this, that, or the other impair me. And that's kind of my same philosophy. I don't want to piss my neighbors off. I like to do things that enhance my place, but doesn't distract from theirs. That barn on my land is just an example of that.
Yeah, and I think it's important. This is Irene, by the way, Irene Weiser, one of the board members.
Irene.
Hi, since you can't see me. I think it's really important. The last thing that you said is, that this is an example, that because, I think we're all aware of a proposal for use of your property. And I do want to just make sure that you're aware that what the committee will be considering is not directed in any way specifically to what happens at your property. It's directed to the overall vision that has been expressed in the comprehensive plan. And I think you're aware of some of the meetings and comments that we've heard from the community in general. And you're exactly right. Things like safety and lighting and siding pertain to, or potentially pertain to what this community may want for commercial businesses, period. And so I think that I want to make clear that you understand that that the work on this committee it may have bearing on things that may happen at your property, but it's not intended to focus on that. It's really to address the larger vision that's articulated in the comprehensive plan for what we want for the community as a whole.
Well, I believe I understand that. Reading this comprehensive plan in each section, I find that development of any commercial businesses are not wanted there. That's kind of a gist that I get when commercial businesses, and I don't know how many are trying to get into Caroline. That would be nice to know, because I listened to, like I said, a lot of the planning, and it was put forward that said we're threatened by this by commercial development here. I didn't realize a lot of other commercial businesses were trying to get into Caroline.
This is Tim Murray. I think it might be helpful for us to make sure that we make a distinction between responses to the draft of the town comprehensive plan and the work of the task force, which is charged to develop tools, potential tools in keeping with the gist of the comprehensive plan. So there are going to be public hearings on the comprehensive plan that will provide citizens with the opportunity to contribute the kind of responses that you've just made. And I just want to make sure that we understand that difference.
I believe I do understand the difference, but you've asked me a question and I'm trying to answer it. If you don't want me to just speak to about the comprehensive plan, that's fine.
No, I just want to make sure that you understand that the work of the task force will be to strategically consider possible tools that could be used as a result of the eventual passage of the comprehensive plan, and that there will be public hearings to debate the comprehensive plan. Aside from this, it's just it might sound like a fine distinction, but it's probably fairly critical to the efficient workings of the task force.
Does that make sense, Ken, what Tim said? And that's kind of where my question at the beginning was coming from, that the task force has a specific charge to investigate tools that may be recommended for land use development in Caroline as a result of the comprehensive plan?
I understand what you're saying. I guess, and maybe it happened at the last meeting as you interviewed others, or meeting before that when you decided to have a task force, what the initial goals are, and I haven't seen that. So I may be behind the 8 ball. Okay.
Okay. So we did list at the planning board's recommendation 3 particular tools to focus on, but then left it open to any others that may come to light. Those tools were formula business restrictions, zoning, and economic development laws. So those are sort of initial focus areas.
Okay.
Great. And I guess following up on, I guess, do you feel that since we all know that a lot of this concern, there has been concern about the property, your property, and the development proposal there. Do you think this creates a conflict of interest for you?
Not for me, no.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll note, Mark, that this committee is just charged with doing research. And I think that, there will be other bodies that review the research and make recommendations and take an active vote. So this is really just researching available kinds of laws that are out there to be used. So
that's right.
I think that,
I just wanted to ask the question to see,
okay.
how Ken felt about that. So.
I'd like to say that I'm glad to see that and hear that Ken's interested on being this, and just so that everybody knows that Ken has been a long-term interest in the town of Caroline going back many, many years. And so it's only, to me, only right and natural that he would want to be involved in an issue like land use and economic development, because he's been a big part of land use and economic development in the town of Caroline for 30, 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
And this is Tim again. I'm confused just about one thing that I just wanted clarification with. I'm not sure. Are you a resident of the town, or do you simply work in Caroline? I'm just not sure.
I have a residence in Richford, and I own land and property in the town of Caroline, and I probably spend more time there than I do at home. I arrived as a worker for Howard Conklin some over 40 years ago. Worked and then started.
Great guy.
Yeah. Before that, I graduated cum laude from Cortland State. Spent 4 years as a first lieutenant in the United States Marine Corps. Came out of the Corps, a lot of different jobs, but found myself, because I grew up on a farm, wanting to get back to farming, and met up with Howard, and he helped me have an opportunity to take over some of the land that he was using, and since then I've had several opportunities to buy land over there with the idea of farming the best of the land we've bought. That's a little over 40 years ago that I spend, like I said, spend more time there than I do at home.
And I'll
And
vouch
Ken-
for that.
Ken,
I've also in before that time, I have worked as a farmer on with two different towns, not at the same time, on the comprehensive plans to help as a several. There was how would I want to say, a small group of 5 farmers that put together parts of comprehensive plan, particularly land use as farmers see it.
so was that you're on the town board in Richford, is that right, Ken?
I have done a little bit there, not as much as I did in Dryden.
Okay, and is that where you worked on the comprehensive plan?
In both places, yes.
I see, okay.
Oh, well,
That's
And
great.
what's your
Ken,
What's
I
your
had,
fate? Oh, go ahead. Irene.
oh, yeah, Ken, I had a couple of questions that I asked everybody, and I just want to check in on them with you as well. And one of them had to do with your availability and an understanding that this is not like some committees that are just going to meet once a month, you know, on an ongoing basis. This is what I would consider to be more of a sprint between now and the end of the year. It's kind of, you know, the committee is tasked with doing a fair amount of research. We are going to have a planner who we've hired to help staff and help facilitate the work. But it'll be up to the committee chair, which is Tim, and the committee members. But my guess is that, you know, you're going to be meeting, I don't know, a couple of times a month. I believe that the decision was that it would be after work hours. So I just wanted to make sure that you're up for doing something like that between now and the end of the year. Do you have availability for that?
I believe I do. The hay season is slowly winding down. We don't quite have the daylight hours as we'd like to have in the summer for making hay, which is my primary farm operation.
Yeah, I don't make hay,
So
but I sure miss the
evenings
sun.
would be, yeah, evenings would be pretty good for me.
Great. Okay. And then the other question that I had that I put to everybody, and I'd love to hear your answer, is what do you value about the town of Caroline?
Well, I value the people. I value the good land that I'm on. We have some poor land. That comes with the purchases. Have some nice scenic views where I'm at.
Nice.
All true.
Okay.
Great. Thank you.
I didn't hear that last part.
I agreed. I said all true.
John agrees with you, Ken.
I see. Okay. Thank you.
So does anybody have any further questions for Ken? No? Okay. So thank you, Ken. And with that, I guess I would call for a vote on Ken's membership to the task force. Are we ready for a vote on that?
Sure.
Sure.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to add Ken Miller to the Caroline Land Use and Economic Development Task Force.
I'll second it.
And seconded by, I think it was John?
John,
John, okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
aye.
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 Opposed? Abstain? Great. Okay. Thank you, Ken. You're on the team.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate
Thank you
it.
for allowing me to be on the team. I hope that I'll be as good a member as I think I can be. And do you have any meetings scheduled at this time?
I believe so. Tim?
The first meeting is scheduled for next Monday night at 7 o'clock. And it will be a Zoom meeting. All of our meetings are also going to be by Zoom because of COVID. So we will be sending everyone around a notice with the Zoom address, etc. probably tomorrow.
Was that the 14th?
Yes, yes.
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
Ken,
And
Ken?
you'll
if you
send
want-
something that will allow me to get into the Zoom meeting. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good.
The other thing I'll mention, Ken, is that the Caroline Library Reading Room does have evening hours, and I think they start at 6:30. And there are some public computers there that have recently been refurbished. So if you want to try that for Zooming, it's
Okay.
available.
So,
Ken, or if you want, I could meet you at the town hall and get you set up with Zooming on my laptop.
Oh, okay.
You know, I just meet you
That'd
here.
be all right.
I'd meet you here like 10 minutes before and
Great. Okay.
at the
Or
town,
even,
at the town
or even
hall.
on
and
the
get-
library thing.
Yeah,
Okay. Sounds great.
Okay. Thanks, Ken.
thanks,
Thanks,
Ken.
Ken. Appreciate it.
So with that, I would like to, I meant to make a draft, but I'll just offer a motion to amend the task force resolution to indicate that the task force is now complete with the current membership, and that members from the town board, the planning board, and the review board are invited, and that the town board representative shall serve as the chair. So that's what I'm offering.
And Mark, can you clarify, are these meetings going to be publicly noticed, or is this a work group that's not working with public availability?
My thinking is that these should be publicly observed meetings, and so I think so. Yeah, I think there would be subject to open meetings law, and so but it would be up to Tim and the membership how they wanted to run it. But I think it would be
Yeah.
observed. Others could observe it, but the participation would be by the task force committee. So, yep. So could I get a second on that motion that I made, or?
It's a motion to
Support.
close the membership? as
It
it's
was to
currently-
close the membership and reword the resolution to indicate that that members are that each the review board, the town board, and the planning board may have representatives, and that the town board representative shall serve as the chair.
And what does it mean that we may, I'm just wanting clarification, sorry. What does it mean that we'll have representatives, that they would actually participate in the conversations, or
Yes.
other than, okay,
Yes, the reason I worded it that way is because I don't want to require membership from each of those boards, because they are volunteer boards that have other responsibilities. But if they do, Ellen Harrison has stepped up from the review board. But I think the current planning board members, none of them feel like they have available time to do that right now.
okay.
And since I'm the liaison to the planning board, that'll probably be okay because I can report back.
The other thing I guess I would ask, and maybe, add to this resolution is how decisions are made within this committee. Are we looking for consensus or are we going by Robert's rules?
Maybe I didn't put that in the resolution, but I had one draft where it should be in there. Say that recommendations to the town board should be by a majority vote. What do you all think about that?
I think that that's fine. I think that there should be room in the recommendations for dissenting opinions to be offered as well. So we have the complete picture of what the committee has been thinking about. That the committee may recommend something, but there may be dissenting views that would, present some alternative views. I think we should be aware of that.
I don't particularly think we need to prescribe to the committee their methodology. I think that is perhaps overstepping what we should do. We've appointed them, we've heard them. I'm confident that they have the ability to talk through their operating procedures and how they'll come to their recommendations. I agree with you, Irene, that if there are dissenting views, I would want to know what they are because I think that's an important part of the conversation. But beyond that, I'm inclined to let them do their work.
Okay.
I guess, I took what I proposed from a conservation advisory board, constitutional resolution. So, yeah, and we will have the minutes will be taken by the planner, so we'll have records of the meetings. So, so yeah, I guess what you're saying, John, is they can just let us know how much of the task force supported a particular proposal or something.
Right, but also
Yeah.
I think John also agreed that, hearing what dissenting views were was an important component of that. So
of course, that's
present where you think you are with your recommendations or what your research has found, and if there is a viewpoint that's alternative, okay, tell us what that is too. That's fine.
yeah.
But I don't think we have to tell them how to make their decisions.
Yeah,
is
no,
what I'm
that's
saying. They're
fair,
adults.
John. That's fair. Okay. All right, so Mark, you have a resolution to close the membership. And what was the other piece?
and allow, and have
Oh, and other boards.
provision for membership from the town board, the review board, the planning board, and that the town board representative would serve as chair.
I'll second it.
Okay. Any further discussion? Tim, are you comfortable with that?
Sure.
Great. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great. Thanks, everybody. Ken asked if we would take a moment of silence in honor of 9/11, which will happen the anniversary will be in a couple days. So I'll propose that we take that moment now. So. Okay, thank you, everybody. All right, next on the agenda, and patiently waiting, is Elin Dowd from the Health Consortium. She's the executive director. Some of you know her. And welcome, Elin. Great.
Good to see you, Elin.
Set up here, I've got information over here and my camera's over here. So if I start wandering around, that's why.
Great.
But
Yeah.
thank you, Mark and John. It's good to see you again.
You too, Elin. Yeah.
Thank you for having me tonight. I thought I'd give a little information up front about the situation I've been dealing with Mark. Go through kind of the background and then open it up for any questions that you might have. And I'll remind you when we open it up for questions that I really can't answer individual claim issues.
Understood.
But I can talk in generalities about this situation that we are currently dealing with and some things that have been unique to the town of Caroline. So first, let me start by apologizing and giving me the opportunity to come tonight. We have had a significant problem at the consortium that was created by our third-party benefit administrators and their inability to resolve it quickly because it was a little more complicated than we thought initially, and it covered more plans than we thought initially. So the problem is specific to metal level plans. The more the newer recent plans, platinum, gold, silver, and bronze, you are on the gold, so you fell within that category. Some of the issues that we're going to discuss tonight are not isolated to the town of Caroline. As I said, it's a bigger issue. But there are some unique situations that are specifically related to the town of Caroline, and this issue exacerbated those situations because of the claims adjudication process. So here's what went wrong. We have two third-party benefit administrators. One administrator is ProAct. They administer our prescription drug claims. The other administrator is Excelis. They administer our medical claims. In addition to that, they are our provider network. So they negotiate with all of our providers and is one of the reasons why we have such a robust network. At some point, halfway towards the end of 2019, their systems stopped talking to each other. They usually feed information back and forth on a daily basis. They continue to feed information back and forth on a daily basis. But regarding deductibles and out-of-pocket maximum accumulators, they were no longer receiving information and accumulating the information jointly. So Excelis was accumulating all their medical claims and ProAct was accumulating all of their claims, but they weren't combining into one out-of-pocket maximum. So that was one of the issues. The other issue within the system that came about when this issue became evident was that on family plans, the accumulators for a single deductible and out of deductible maximum were accumulating at the family level and not the individual level.
Oh boy.
So those were our two big problems. So what does that mean? It meant that once you hit your out-of-pocket maximum in the system, and you were having both prescription drug and medical claims, that you were at that deductible level or you were at that out-of-pocket level. Because the medical may have said, if your deductible was 1,000, medical may have said, okay, we've only paid 800, but there was 300 in prescription drugs. So neither party knew. Prescription drugs thought they were at 300, medical was at 800. So, so it meant your out-of-pocket kept accumulating above the amount you could have. on the other issue, and then if you were an individual, your deductible should stop at your individual level. I believe that's $1,400 for the gold plan. It wasn't stopping at $1,400, so you, the individual, were continuing to have your deductible accumulate above $1,400 until you hit $2,800 or your family hit $2,800. So you as an individual in a family plan were actually accumulating higher than you should have been. So those two items were going on at the same time. The problems were identified a couple months ago, and there were actually 3 or 4 individuals in 3 or 4 different municipalities that were having problems. One of them was from the town of Caroline. And there was one day I was talking to Mark and I went, wait a minute, you know, this sounds really familiar to me. And at that point, we were able to identify that it was a system-wide issue and identify that it was PROACT and Excelis, and not just a PROACT issue and not just a Excelis issue. So from that point on, I've had daily, I think, discussions with Mark, emails back and forth regarding this issue. So the town of Caroline was well aware of this from early on. At that point, when we identified it was a much larger issue, I started reporting on this formally at board meetings and at committee meetings, bringing up that the issue was going forward and asking for any questions. As we came to a point where we were identifying all of the items and issues, a letter was sent to your supervisor, and I believe a copy was sent to your benefits clerk of those that had an issue in your location and when remediation would start taking place. For the town of Caroline, we did something we haven't done for other. We also paid claims for an employee who had some very because we didn't want their personal situation to become worse due to this accumulator item. So we paid some claims for them from the consortium, just so they wouldn't go to collections or they wouldn't be charged more out of pocket until we resolved this situation. So we tried to help the town of Caroline the best we could with getting some of those things out of the way. And then as recently as last week, we sent a member out to personally work with your supervisor, your town clerk, and one of your employees on their specific claims issues. And we have offered to do that again if there are other employees that would like to sit down with the consortium staff. That doesn't remedy the situation. So what are we doing to remedy the situation? I have been reassured by both Excelis and PROACT, and I do want to let you know I continue to have regular meetings, weekly meetings with representatives from both PROACT and Excelis. I'm also having leadership meetings with Consortium and Excelis and PROACT to make sure something like this never happens again. So I have been reassured by them that the system has been updated and that this situation no longer exists, and that claims for 2020 should be paid according to the plan going forward and the restrictions of the plans going forward. Due to the issue, there are some reimbursements that need to be made for issues that were paid at a higher level out of pocket. Those reimbursements will be made to both providers and to employees. The reimbursements to the employees will come from providers, they will come from Excelis, or they will come from PROACT. The problems related to 2020 were a priority because claims kept coming in, so we needed to resolve that right away, where 2019 claims were stagnant. So 2020 remediation has already started on 2020 claims. In 2019, start very shortly. So that is happening, and that was part of the letter who has been identified and will be reimbursed. And they will be reimbursed for both of those situations. Now, the question has come up regarding Town of Caroline. Can't we reimburse the Town of Caroline because you have an HRA? The Lifetime Benefit Solutions is not a consortium product. So they're an outside and separate entity. Also, in rectifying this situation, Excelis and ProAct have to reimburse claims as they came into the system, not actually by service date, but how they were paid in the system. And if a provider was paid at a specific level that shouldn't have been paid at, Excelis or the consortium, we don't know what they secured from the employee. So we need to reimburse the provider. If the provider needs to reimburse the employee, they will reimburse the employee. We can talk a little bit differently about 2019 once we close that, because we may be able to reimburse the HRAs only from the ProAct side of the fence. So I know that has been requested from the Town of Caroline, and what we can offer you is reports and things like that, that if you have to go to an employee, I would keep those reports very limited, because under HIPAA, you know, even dollar amounts spent on medical is confidential. So we'd have to keep that pretty succinct and in a small situation managed very carefully, perhaps through your HRA. So there were some other complications specific to the Town of Caroline. Well, I mean, this happens to others, but I know it complicated the issue at Town of Caroline. If someone secures services out of network aggregates separately from in-network. So if you are at the maximum for in-network and you go out of network, you are going to pay out of your pocket because you haven't met the out-of-pocket maximum for out of network. So there's two different silos for that. I believe you just fund one silo.
That's right.
So if someone's continuing to pay, they may be continuing to pay because their claims are out of network. They could pay up to another $6,000 for single and another $12,000 for family. So I don't, you know, those amounts would not be reimbursed. So when someone is getting billed for that, those are claims they are responsible for.
Can I please ask the board members who are not speaking to mute their microphones, because we're getting a lot of static? Thank you.
Also, if the employees had items that were not covered under the plan, like over-the-counter drugs, the employee is responsible for paying them. And sometimes those claims are affixed with other claims. So it's showing that they have a expense and they think, well, I don't because I haven't met my out-of-pocket maximum, everything should be paid at 100%. Well, there are certain things within the plan we don't. The individual is responsible for paying those bills. So those bills would continue to come in for things that aren't covered under the plan, and they'd be responsible for that. There are also some employees that might have gone to collections for claims that were never submitted to Excelis or ProAct. So if the bill was submitted to the consortium, we looked up to see if it was part of the accumulator issue. If we couldn't identify it as part of the accumulator issue, we advised to claim reimbursement form. So that could be put in with the other claims. Employees need to be responsible for their own claims. They need to send them in when they receive them. I know that's hard when you're used to just paying for everything with an HRA, but if your HRA wasn't used or you were billed separately, you need to submit those claims. So we can't be responsible for claims we don't know about. This may have been rejected because an individual was not covered on the plan at the time the claim came through, or not enrolled in the plan when the time a claim came through, or there was more information needed in order to pay that claim. So that claim is denied until more information is processed through our claims administrators. I also want to note that some of the claims we received and were asked questions about were workers' compensation claims. And some of those claims that were not related to the consortium may have been claims, I'm not sure of this. I was told by employees that these claims had gone to collections. So we have to make sure we're not comparing apples to oranges, that we're only looking at apples in the consortium's basket and not workers' comp claims in the orange basket. So we are very responsible for what is consortium mistakes that have been made, and we're working very diligently on cleaning that up. I really apologize that this process has gone on for as long as it has. It should have been resolved much quicker. It's becoming part of our renewal, contract renewal discussions with both of our providers because it was such a huge issue that took so long to resolve. I know that may seem like an empty apology when you're talking to your employees, but I want you to know we'd be happy to talk to your employees. I continue to offer that to you if you feel that would be important for us to do. And I will continue to communicate with Mark on a regular basis as these issues come up in front of us and as we're adjudicating the claims to make sure they are adjudicated properly going forward, and that you have the information you need to be reimbursed by employees if they have received too much HRA funding. So that's kind of a huge overview of the situation of what's been going on, not just for the town of Caroline, but for other members of the consortium as well. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have, but I'd also like to remind you I have to limit it into the confines of the HIPAA rules and regulations.
Elin, thank you very much. That was really, really helpful. And most of my questions really were about process and what you just described. So that was excellent to kind of hear. Just a couple of questions. Well, one, I want to recap and make sure I heard it right. So the main thing that seems to have gone wrong was technological communication between Excelis and ProAct. And that seems to then, they're both stacking up the dollars, but not telling each other. So that actually makes sense. And if I heard you correctly, that issue has been resolved, correct?
Correct.
Perfect. Okay.
And just to let you know why it took so long to resolve the issue is we'd get these claims and we'd say, looks like you haven't processed these claims.
Right.
And we call ProAct and we'd say, ProAct, the dollar amount is the same number as all the prescription claims. And they'd say, nope, we paid all those claims. And we say, well, you know, how come they haven't hit their deductible? And they'd say, well, we still have, you know, 800 outstanding. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And then call Excelis and they'd say, nope, we paid all our claims. So it took a while to realize they weren't talking to each other.
Yeah,
that is-
yeah. It is sometimes hard to figure out where is the specific issue. And then it sounds like there were a couple of other issues that came into play where people thought workers' comp claims fell under the consortium. Of course, those are separate buckets. So that was in the mix. And a couple where perhaps things that weren't actually covered, they thought were covered. So we have kind of two little sub-issues there. Okay. So my other question, and this is just an opinion, you mentioned with our HRA that it's, it's not a consortium product, which we know. Is there any sense that anything would have been different if we had been working with FSAs or HSAs instead? Or would this have happened no matter what? Okay.
Well, I think what makes this different is with an HRA, it's very easy for an employee not to take responsibility of this situation. So an employee thinks everything comes out of my HRA. Once I hit my deductible or my out-of-pocket maximum, it's paid at 100%. I don't have to worry about my health claims. In some of the situations regarding accumulator issues, individuals were going out of network. So it was going above that amount. And they weren't submitting the bills because they thought the bills were going to be paid. So it wasn't until they received a collection notice that they went, well, why am I receiving a collection notice? All my bills should have been paid. So they thought and this accumulator issue is going on to compound it, going, well, they're going to fix the accumulator issue and I won't have to pay anything. And then it turns out that, yes, they do. So I think by having an HRA where the town is taking all of the responsibility and the money is the town and the money never goes back to the individual, I think it's more hands-off for employees in that situation. If it was an HSA and an FSA, it's the employee's money. And I think you manage your own money differently than you manage someone else's money. So sure, maybe they would have been more in tune with what was going on, but the accumulator issue still would have been the accumulator issue and it still would have happened.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And as far as we know, anybody who had negative consequences as a result of specifically the accumulator issue, we've made them whole?
They have not all been made whole yet. We're
Okay.
in the process of making them whole.
Okay, and if there were to be any collections type, credit report type issues, again, as a result of the accumulator issue, we would be able to address those, yes or no?
Well, I'm not, well, let's talk about two things. If there is
Okay,
something,
sure.
if there is something in collections that hasn't been paid, and it hasn't been submitted as a claim yet, we would pay that as 100% unless it's out of network or something.
Sure.
If there is still collection issues out there, we can remedy them. We need to identify those. The best way for an individual to have immediate action taken is to file that claim with Excelis or Proact if it's prescription.
Okay.
And get it into their system, get it recorded in their system. Copy us, let us know what has happened, when it's happened, what the claim is, and then we can work with the accumulator team, make sure they see it in the system to make sure it's in the flow and it's being paid properly. So yes, we can get involved in that. So we need to make sure that anything that's gone to collections is already in the system and identify that immediately. The second item is, I know there's been some discussions about people's credit ratings. I do have to say that employees need to take some responsibility for their claims being paid. If you have a dependent that doesn't live at your house and they're getting bills sent to them And it's not until it raises and they're ignoring those bills. And then all of a sudden you get a collection notice because those bills were a sham issue. That's an issue of somebody not opening their bills and taking responsibility for their bills. So the consortium would be happy to address any credit issues by saying an individual was part of a system error which caused claims to be adjudicated improperly. This happened between this period and that period, you know, so whatever, but we can't rectify credit ratings, and any situation like that is certainly an individual. Someone all of a sudden they're in collections, you know, that's an individual. So
that makes sense to me.
but happy if, you know, if it was part of the claims adjudication process to write a note on behalf of the consortium about this situation. We would certainly be glad to do that.
I appreciate that.
Let you know, Excelis has called providers, not just for the town of Caroline, but for other individuals in this accumulator mess, and has said, please, please take this bill out of collections. We are going to reimburse you within the next 30 days. So Excelis has paid providers directly, specifically to avoid claims going to collections.
Wonderful. Elin, thank you very much. I really appreciate the level of detail that you provide. That's helpful. And also I want to say thank you for the amount of work you're doing on this. I know these are the types of things that pretty much eat a person's life, and I recognize that. So
I think there was one day when I got frustrated with Mark and I said, you don't understand, I'm spending 80% of my day on this. I mean, I'm still in weekly meetings and daily emails, but that's my responsibility because I'm the consortium. We want to make sure your ownership and membership in this shared service, that we are adjudicating claims the way you're expecting them to be adjudicated. So full responsibility for needing to spend the time that it takes to get this situation resolved.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any? Irene. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, Mark's muted. Sorry. Elaine, I too, you know, a lot of this stuff is more complicated than I have, you know, any kind of sophisticated understanding. So from that standpoint, I really appreciate what you've been doing to try and dig in and get to the bottom of this. I wonder about what kind of auditing mechanisms are in place. And I come to this from a very different perspective. I've just been really involved in the NYSEG rate cases, folks are aware. And there are different kinds of audits that our utilities undergo, you know, on a, I can't say annual basis, some probably annual and some on a more regular basis. And so one is just, you know, kind of the standard fiscal audit of, you know, inputs, outputs, blah, blah, blah. But then there are other types of audits that I didn't know existed before that really, with NYSEG, there was some sort of audit of management and administration. And it was intended to really figure out how are decisions made, how is communication happen, blah, 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 to really kind of, and the auditors have a window of expertise to then impart recommendations to how to improve. And, you know, inevitably, when you're operating a business, certainly the size of a utility, it's complicated and there are, you know, wires that get crossed and balls that get dropped. And I wonder what kind of audits does the consortium undergo on a regular basis? And are there any particular kind of audits that might be brought to bear, both, you know, retroactively to just ensure that all the drop pieces have been picked up, but then in an ongoing way going forward to help ensure not only that this problem doesn't happen, but maybe catch some other glitches before they smolder for as long as this did.
Yeah, great question. So we have two audits that happen every other year. So one is we have an external auditor that comes in that we contract with to do, an auditor that comes in to do the prescription drug claims. So we have just finished the prescription drug claim audit for 2018 and 2019. Yeah, I think that's right. So from that, we are dealing with PROACT on the outcomes of that audit. Those audits are shared with the executive committee and the board, what the outcomes of those audits were without specific claims details, obviously. That becomes part of our contract negotiations and renewals and discussions with our providers. So when we started the PROACT audit, we weren't aware of this issue, so it wasn't a focus of that audit. We have just signed the contract to have an outside firm, BMI, audit our Excelis claims. In addition to the own internal audits that they do, we have BMI come in, and we specifically asked them to look at this situation and the relationship between PROACT and Excelis, and to make recommendations for how Excelis operates with PROACT in the future and how they operated in the past. So that audit just began. I had the audit kickoff meeting last week. This was a big topic of conversation with that. So that's kind of the regular audits that go on, external audits bringing it in, and now we are including this issue as part of that. In addition to that, the consortium from time to time hires outside consultants. One of the outside consultants they secured in the last 3 years was an organization called Siegel. Siegel is a large benefit consulting firm, and Siegel participated in the prescription drug renewal the last go around. And we have the information they provided with that. I was just on the phone with them today, going over the work they had done there and issues they had identified at that. So that's kind of not an audit, it's just having an outside expert come look at our operations and how we operate. They are now well aware of this situation. In addition to that, Siegel also got it to your question about management and decision-making. That is, I would like to say that's kind of how my position was created, because the consortium, and John, you can probably speak better to this than I can, is Siegel said, you've got claims adjudicators running their own things, you have outside consultants running their own things, and then you as a board kind of bring them all together with nobody really manning the ship, not one person manning the ship. So Don, who I know you're all familiar with, Don Barber, could have easily said, well, Steve Losey did that. And Steve Losey could have easily said, well, Don Barber did that, because there wasn't an executive director in place at the time to be at the helm. So the recommendation from Siegel was not just executive director, but some of the items that the executive director should be responsible for doing, and that was holding our outside vendors accountable. Now, a lot of the results of that quality control review are still being discussed at executive committee meetings, because they weren't, I couldn't accomplish everything in my first year. So we're chipping away at that list, and we'll continue to chip away at that list. And I know that back and or other organizations that have been calling me to come back and do another assessment of our operation now that we're starting to put in place systems, and we formed an operations committee to put those policies and practices in place that weren't in place previously. For example, we have an organization that's been very late in their payments. We have a fee that gets charged to them, but there's no policy or practice in place that says we're going to notify them. We're going to notify them 30 days, 60 days. Who's going to notify them? What the notification is going to say. We just let them continue to be in arrears. So those are the type of management decisions that the operations committee is going to continue to look at, and the policies and procedures they're going to put. And we could probably do more.
We can always do more.
In all your extra time. One other
Right.
question. How do you know if and when you should be looking beyond Excelis and ProAct? How do you decide that, they're worth sticking with versus looking beyond? It's
right. So every time our contract comes up, we decide as an organization if we want to do an RFP. We are in the process of, and that's one of the reasons I was on the phone with Siegel this morning, because they did provide us advice the last time we renewed our PBM contract. And gave us specific ideas for that. So we will be, our 3-year contract with ProAct is up at the end of this year. We're gonna have to extend it a month or two due to this accumulator issue, because we've been resolving the accumulator issue and not going out to an RFP. So I really want us to look at an RFP for a change or a review for a change in 2020, and then we will start conversations soon after that regarding Excelis. Excelis really is the leader in Central New York. There aren't many other networks that have the provider network that Excelis has, or the claims adjudication. However, Excelis has really old systems, which is one of the reasons this was able to continue at the level it did, because they weren't able to identify it. So I think if we don't change from Excelis, because they add a lot of value in other areas, going out for an RFP allows us to negotiate differently with Excelis when we get to contract negotiations. And to be very specific about what we need Excelis to do in order to renew the contract with them. And that will probably start in 2020, but it'll depend how long the PBM search happens.
Elin, do most of the consortium members have some kind of an appendage, like an HRA or HSA, associated with their policies?
Most of the high deductible health plans do. So the gold, silver, and bronze. And it is a smaller percentage of our population, because our large members still have those old PPO and indemnity plans. But one of the things that has happened as a result of COVID and having sales tax and other state support cut back is they're looking at ways they can cut costs. And I know Tompkins County is doing an incentive plan to move retirees to a different plan, as well as employees into a platinum plan. So we're seeing more movement into meta level plans. But we do still have a chunk of members with those larger indemnity plans. And a lot of that has to do with contract negotiations.
Right. The reason I asked about that was a pretty simple mechanical reason, is that, you know, if the one complication in ours has been, you know, subscribers not, you know, being confused about which card they show, or if they have to show both cards. And you know, I've wondered if it all could be just integrated into a single card, you know, this one has an HRA badge on it or whatever, that would simplify the process.
Yeah, and we've, as you know, I've been talking to both Excelis and ProAct, and that hasn't come to fruition yet, because our claims for medical go in one direction and our claims for ProAct go in another direction, and we're not responsible for the HRA. So pulling our information into an HRA, and not everybody uses Lifetime Benefit Solutions. They use Benetech and other organizations. So it would be very difficult for us to negotiate with all those vendors to get, you know, one card, if an HRA was going to do the one card. But getting ProAct and Excelis to agree on one card and what one card would look like, I don't see that happening. But I think certainly it could be part of future contract negotiations, is how can we resolve that issue? I agree with you. It's very confusing. Well, first of all, it's very confusing for employees to even know what the consortium is, but then to have two cards on top of that, and people say, oh, you're part of the consortium. No, I'm not. I'm part of Excelis. And then you try to get your prescriptions filled, and they say, oh, you're part of ProAct, and they say, no, I'm part of Excelis. So I agree with you. It's very confusing. We have not found a remedy for it. But certainly, you know, something after a result of this is something we really need to explore and look at in more detail.
Great. Yeah. I mean, that'd be great. You know, it seems like with technology these days, and it's just a piece of plastic, you should be able to do quite a lot with it. So yeah, that'd be great. It's more than a piece of plastic, but.
I know what you mean.
Did the communication at some point between Excelis and ProAct, did it work for a while and then it stopped working, or did it never work?
No, it did work, and it did work, and it stopped working in the second or third quarter of 2019.
Who changed what? Who changed what that resulted in that breakdown?
It's actually, both organizations did system upgrades.
Oh.
So the accumulator issue started with an Excelis upgrade, but they were still receiving ProAct information until later in 2019, when a ProAct system changed, and that's when both systems stopped communicating to each other. And that's something I really want to understand in more detail when we meet with both ProAct and Excelis in the same room, to identify again for us what fell apart and when it fell apart, and how that's never going to happen again.
Yeah, and not only this particular error, but you know, whatever other ways that the systems have to talk to each other. I mean,
Right.
it could show up in a different way after the next upgrade, right? So there maybe needs to be a whole set of checklists of, you know, A to B, yep, that works. C to D, yep, that works, or whatever, you know, so that you can have the tick list of all of the different data exchanges that are supposed to happen and make sure that they all are in play.
I think it makes more sense just to avoid upgrades.
Yeah.
Great comments. As you can see, I'm writing them down.
And then do you guys
Very helpful.
have your own system as well, Elin? Does the consortium have a system and that you upgrade it to?
No, we do not. So no information. I have no individual benefit information. So when Town of Caroline is making updates, those updates are going directly to Excelis, and Excelis is information daily to ProAct. So if there's a member change or a new member or something like that, I don't know that. The only way I would know that is when it shows up on the invoice from Excelis that a new member has been added. Or I find out about it when a municipality calls me and says, hey, we hired this person in August and they still haven't received their ID card and it's September 9th. So that's, yeah, so we don't have a system that's talking to anybody.
Okay. So you just get reports from each of them, and is that
correct? And Excelis is the main provider of information. Most ProAct information is fed directly to Excelis and fed back to us. And here's another thing that an employee doesn't know or understand. When you go on the Excelis website and you look at your deductible usually is lower than what you think it should be. That's because Excelis only updates deductible information regarding Excelis on their employee-facing website. In an accumulator situation like this, that's incredibly confusing.
Mm-hmm.
So we've had municipalities call us and say, now that this accumulator issue has happened, we're checking, how come this deductible is lower? You told me they had already hit. I'm like, because you're not looking at the prescription drug. Now you got to go over to ProAct and look at prescription drug and add the two together.
Yeah.
So it's not ideal. And it's something I really would like to work on in the future so that employees are getting accurate information from both providers, whoever those providers are.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be another good integration measure between the two that you know, the consortium could bring their leverage to negotiate, I would think. So great. Any other thoughts or questions for Elin?
This has been very helpful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, appreciate it, Elin.
I'm sorry we've caused you so much grief. I know it's been extra difficult for the town of Caroline because you've had some unusual cases there, and I know that's become very evident to most of you. So I apologize for the extra time you have all had to spend on this. And seriously, I encourage you, my office number rolls to my cell phone. You know, something smells bad, please give me a phone call, let me know, have the employees contact us directly if they're confused, and we'll keep Mark informed as the remediation process continues, and encourage Mark to work with your HRA if or administrator if there really needs to be any other resolution to receiving funds back to the town or anything like that. So probably more time than you ever wanted to spend at a board meeting talking about benefit claims, but I appreciate you giving me the time to go through it in great detail, and I hope that was helpful.
Yes, it was very helpful. Yeah, and I really appreciate you. You know, sorry that you joined us under these circumstances, because it's really good to chat with you about the consortium, and so I do appreciate you, you know, stretching your day to join us. So thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you. I appreciate the time, and I look forward to someday coming out to the town of Caroline.
Yes, great, awesome.
Great.
Look forward to that.
So look forward to talking to you soon. And Mark, I know you and I will be in touch.
Great.
And Joe, don't be a stranger.
Yeah, it's good to see you, Elin.
All right. Take care, Elin.
Yep. Yep. Take care.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Right.
Um, So moving on, that was really, really nice. I would like to, the highway superintendent's report is next, and I'm not sure that I see Bobby here.
Yeah.
But I did speak to Bobby today, and there is one update in that Suit Coat is coordinating its lot paving with us, with the county, and that's going to postpone the paving by a week. So it's pushed, it was going to be next week, so it's going to be pushed back a week, and we'll send out announcements to all the departments so that the court and everybody knows about that.
And what about the lawn, rock hounding and seeding the lawn?
Yeah, Bobby's on top of that. I did propose that Barry and Cal and I meet with Bobby, and so we'll just to touch base on the final flourishes to make sure that that everybody understands everything. But yeah, he's got that all scheduled into his work program for the next few weeks.
Great.
So
Good,
yeah,
good.
that's looking good, and it's smashed pretty flat right now, but it still needs to be rock hounded, and
Yeah.
so there's work to be done still.
Yeah. Did we do privilege of the floor? I know that we wanted to.
We did.
Oh, we did? Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
somehow
We
missed that you announced that, and I guess we didn't have anybody.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I will go and did I do that right? Yeah, it's time for my report. So where did I put it? I lost my report.
All 26 pages of it.
Yeah, it was a page. Oh, here it is. Staring right at
Mark,
it.
in looking at the email, I got 2 copies of the trial balance and none of supervisor's report.
Okay, I'll get you the right thing later, but I'll
Yeah.
give you the verbal
Yeah,
now.
so I guess I just wanted you to know that I didn't have it to look at and ask
Okay.
questions about. So that's all.
Okay, so for streetlights, we did have the 90% design plan meeting. Cal attended that with the NIPA representatives for our 79 streetlights. And all I will tell you about it is that, we're scheduled for all 3,000 Kelvin lamps, except for 3 4,000 Kelvin lamps at particular intersections that needed that kind of illumination.
Mark, weren't they supposed to give us a demonstration of the?
That seems to not, so they have a demonstration of lamps, and they were at the, I got a notification from Linda Woodard about 3 hours before it happened, so I didn't make it, but they had it at Cayuga Heights. That was a couple months ago. And so I asked them about that, if we were going to get a demonstration. And he said the town of Dryden now has that. So I will contact Jason or Ray or somebody to see if we can at least get be able to see. It's all been complicated by the distancing and COVID situation, but the town of Dryden apparently does have the physical lamps for us to observe. So
Would probably be a good idea before we get broadsided with stuff we don't want.
Anything's better than pink.
yeah, and maybe I'll reach out to, I'll check on that. Yeah.
And were they also going to evaluate to see, did we actually need all of the lights that we have? I thought that was part of what we were interested in doing too.
I brought that up, this is that's not their understanding. Their understanding that this is a one-to-one conversion, and from now until the 100% design plan, which they're working on now, to add or remove any, it would be incumbent upon us to let them know. But as you know, so I brought up the potential, we have a fair number of streetlights to the west of the town hall on 79. And he said, with the LEDs, you can just turn them off if you don't want to use them. So he was actually recommending not removing that physical structure. So, yeah.
But we're paying for the new fixture. And if we didn't need 70, what do we have all told, 79 fixtures?
79.
Maybe we
Yeah.
only needed 59 and we're paying for 79.
Yeah. So we can, it's,
I do remember him telling us that was going to be part of when he came to meet with
the
us.
Casey said,
Yeah, he did tell us that they were going to do an evaluation with us.
It's definitely not what they're saying.
It just seems to be set up as a one-for-one program, get into adding or subtracting.
History gets revised along the way.
Yeah.
Well, I think the thing about adding streetlights is a really, maybe, I guess they could make recommendations and then we could move from that. So yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and I don't know that we're necessarily looking to add it. There may be places where they do recommend that we add, but, I thought that there was some question of, do we need as many as we have?
Mm-hmm.
I recall that as well.
And so I'd really like to look into that before we're spending money for lamps that we don't need, that we end up, maintaining for years. We can't just arbitrarily decide to, well, let's turn this one off. There are, I presume, certain kinds of standards and distances and, types of curves and types of speeds and, whatever the considerations are that go into where lamps are actually needed versus when they're not. And I would really like to see that done. So
You want to contact Casey?
I
So,
can.
I mean,
I can.
I'll-
Thought it was.
I'll ask Casey about it and see what he says. So
Well,
I don't know.
But if he says, I thought you've sort of indicated that's not a service that they provide, then, I personally, I think that we should find out who does provide that service and get it done. I think it's worth the expense to explore it, in that it may end up saving us many thousands of dollars in terms of, purchasing and installing and maintaining fixtures that we don't need, and the monthly electric bills on them.
Okay, I'll explore it. I don't know anything about it, so I'll look into it.
Thanks.
Yeah. So as part of this program, I submitted a really rinky-dink grant application for the Smart Street Lighting New York program. It just $8,000 grant, so they recommended we do that. There's no cost to it, and it provides the ability to add technology to the street lights that we might want in the future.
Yep.
And again, this is somewhat lacking, I feel, but if there were things we wanted to add now, you can write the grant for greater amounts where NIPA would provide a 50% cost share with that. So that might be something to follow up on as well. Casey was going to, is pretty far overdue. From my understanding, we're supposed to get a maintenance agreement proposal for review and consideration. So I'll follow up with him on that and see, and then I can ask these other questions and try to get some resolution. I'll move on to the TCOG subcommittee reports. My committee, emergency planning, the resolution we'll be considering tonight was the sort of concrete thing we came up calling on New York State to fund rural emergency services. Some kind of a program that would be comparable to CHIPS. And Warden Hart, that was really his idea. And Irene was on that committee, and we all worked on that. The energy subcommittee, chaired by Rod from town of Ithaca. They are working on CCAs. Irene's been involved in that, I think, too. And there's a webinar that they are promoting coming, looking at CCAs, I believe, in the Westchester area with a focus on renewables. And that's on October 2nd. So, and then the water subcommittee, the thing I remember about that is that Liz Thomas is developing a new funding model for the intermunicipal organization to sort of match the annual dues to the stormwater needs of the municipality, so that it's not just a flat fee for each municipality. I gave a report on the health consortium. I think we've covered the accumulator issue enough tonight. And I mentioned before that the consortium added a eyeglasses and hearing aid benefit, which I think is
I'm sorry, Mark,
tremendous.
what was that accumulator issue?
Okay, I knew that was a joke. And then also the consortium is considering an end of year premium relief because of the COVID pandemic. So that should be coming in December, I believe. So I've started work on the 2021 budget. I developed a draft fund balance policy, and I'll provide that to you soon for our October meeting for your review and thoughts. As far as revenues for the budget, there's not, much to change. I'm not going to add any AIM funding, so that's negative $20,000, and I'll budget CHIPS at 80% of what it's budgeted at. And then, as I mentioned before, I'm going to propose to keep wage rates flat, except for union employees in the town. And then the final little thing is Ray Davis, who works for TCAT, he noticed we were doing our grounds improvements, so he contacted me about doing some improvements at the bus shelter. So I had a meeting with him and Megan Pulver, and so they were just asking that we add, I don't know if you're familiar with the pad at the bus shelter, but there's the pad, and then there's like shale slabs kind of down on the ground, and then there's the sidewalk, and then there's grass, and then there's the curb. So for ADA compliance, they would like concrete from the pad out to the curb. So I talked to Bob about that, and he said he thought that would be no problem to work into the project. So we're going to add that to the grounds project. It'll be a small but significant improvement near the town hall.
Does it make sense to move the shelter? Right, we're going to have now. Isn't the intent to have park and ride be on Midline Road?
So we agonized this before and went through a plan to move it, current plan, and the reason we decided to keep the shelter where it is, largely because a lot of the riders are residents of Fountain Manor, and it's a convenient location for them. And then that's also
the path. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, and then we also, that's why we routed the sidewalk out to the charging station so that they would, people at the midline parking could walk that sidewalk over and connect up to the path and get to the bus shelter.
Okay.
So we did as a board work through this in great agony a couple years ago when we were developing the site plan
Yep.
review.
I've forgotten. Okay, fine.
But it's a good point.
Thanks.
Great. So, all right. Town clerk's report. If you haven't figured it out by now, Velvet bookkeeper is covering for Jesse tonight. So I will mention that Jesse has been working over the last few months to try to get as a agent for hunting licenses, and Velvet applied herself to that the other day and somehow ferreted herself into the depths of DEC and had someone pick up a phone line. And at the end of the day, was able to determine that no new agents are going to be assigned this year. So we will not be selling hunting licenses this year because of the COVID pandemic. So that I will offer that report from the clerk's office.
Does that mean that people can't hunt this year, or are
No,
permits multi-year?
you can get hunting licenses. The issue here is that Jesse's a new agent and needed to be authorized as an agent to sell licenses. And so she needed someone from the DEC to do that for her. And they're not doing any of that for this season. If you were previously an agent, then it's all fine. So they're selling licenses in Dryden and Richford and other places.
So people just have to go to some other place to get their license then?
Yep.
And
Like Walmart.
Yeah.
okay, and they can they, is there any virtual way? Can people just log into the DEC site and apply?
They can't hunt virtually, so they might as well apply physically.
I
Yes.
think, I'm not sure for hunting licenses, but I think they can for fishing licenses. But I think most people just go ahead and go to the normal place and get their licenses in person.
Okay, so do we have we sent out a notice, or, you know, just let people know that we can't do hunting licenses and that they should go to?
Yeah, we put a sign on the board, a few different places in town, and at the town hall, and
Yeah, maybe
also
send
I
it.
put it on the website. I kind of did this when Jesse was leaving for a little trip. So I think tomorrow we're going to try to draft something for the email server,
Okay.
just to send something out.
Yeah, good. I think that the amount of people who actually go and look at our website is pretty small relative to the number of people who get an email. So,
Well, and also I think that the people who are coming in to get them, I don't think they do either. So they're still going to come in.
yeah,
And now at least she has an answer for them, because she was feeling really horrible
Yeah.
about not being able to do this. And she's been trying so hard. And
Yeah.
I just luckily got a hold of somebody.
yeah. And now she can blame the state. So good for her.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Great. Thank you, Velvet.
Yep.
All right. It's time for the county representatives report. And hey, Dan.
Hello there. How are we doing?
Great. How are you?
Good. Thank you for being flexible with your agenda.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming.
You're welcome. Before I jump into the county report, I just want to mention, based on what I just heard, that I don't know if you heard that the Danby town clerk resigned. So it's possible that there are no hunting licenses available in Danby either this year. I don't know if there's anybody else authorized there or not. Okay. Let me start with voting. And there's a lot of details here, and there will be a quiz afterwards. But seriously, I haven't memorized all this yet myself, so it's going to be repeated a lot, and hopefully the public will get the message. I take it back. I guess I have memorized it. First of all, there are 3 ways to vote. You can vote on election day, you can do early voting, or you can vote absentee ballot. Election day doesn't need any explanation, I guess. Early voting is happening October 24th through November 1st, just like last time. Yes, last year. And let's talk about absentee ballots. So for the primary, for those that voted in the primary, everyone was sent an absentee ballot application automatically. That's not going to happen this time. You have to request it. And you can request it via the Board of Elections, just like normal, or there's a New York State web portal that's been established. And I understand it's very easy to use. And if you just Google, absentee portal or something like that in New York, you'll get to it pretty easily. We're expecting about 30,000 absentee ballots in Tompkins County, which is a formidable number. And if you do vote by absentee ballot, there's now several options of what you can do with that absentee ballot. You can mail it back in, just like normal. You can turn it in during any of the early voting sessions. So that's a way that if you're concerned at all about the mail, this is a way that you can get your absentee ballot and hand deliver it and still not really be in contact with hardly anybody. And then a third way, which is going to be brand new, and it's not operational yet, but it should be soon, is that there's going to be a slot cut into the Board of Elections building so that you can drop it off from the outside without contacting anybody. So I just want to say again, that is not operational yet. I'm sure there'll be a press release going out when that happens. And our Board of Elections commissioners have told us that 30,000 absentee ballot number is a little intimidating to them. So if that's how people are comfortable voting, then absolutely they should vote that way. But if people are at all comfortable coming in for the early voting, which has minimal numbers of people involved, that would be encouraged if people feel safe doing that. Okay, that's all for voting. There's going to be a public hearing at our next county legislature meeting on Tuesday, September 5th, 5:30. And the subject of this public hearing is a proposed increase in the tax rate for Airbnbs and traditional bed and breakfasts. So if I'm not mistaken, it's any rental unit that has, whether it's fewer than 10 units in the facility. So in other words, there's the large hotels, the normal hotels, and then this other category. Now, up till now, there's been a different tax rate for each one. Hotels are taxed at 5% for what's called the hotel room tax. And these smaller units, the Airbnbs and the B&Bs have been taxed at 3%. The proposal is to increase the tax rate on the small units to be the same as the large units. So the Airbnb tax will go up from 3% to 5%. That's the proposal. It has to be a local law, so there's a public hearing about it at our next meeting. Okay, next topic is broadband. I don't want to say a lot because it's obviously a really big topic, but there does seem to be a movement happening or consensus forming to at least investigate doing it looking at broadband expansion on a countywide basis or a regional basis. And there's a multi-town meeting that some of you have received a specific invite to, but everybody's invited. It's on Thursday, September 24th at 5 o'clock. It's being organized by Sarah Schnabel, who is one of the town board members in Danby. And the purpose of it is to just have a discussion to see, before all the towns potentially go off in their own directions, to see if it would make more sense to look at something jointly done. And it seems that a good, strong possibility involved in this regional planning organization called ST8. I think it stands for Southern Tier 8. It's the 8 counties on the southern tier. They have been doing broadband expansion with some of their counties and not others. And there's plans to do more, but it's all kind of in the works right now. So At this point, I believe that this would probably be the best organization to put our hopes in and to hitch our wagon to, and to see if they can come through with a plan. They do have resources, they do have funding possibilities that are much harder than for the towns to get individually. The one thing, each county acts as the lead. They call them the local lead. And this is the thing that concerns me at this moment. I want to make sure that we have somebody locally in the county that is really organizing this conversation and keeping track of things, again, before the towns go off on their own. So that's a lot of little pieces of it. Like I said, it's a very big topic, and it's hard to sum up everything that's going on or that next. And then my last topic for my report is the 2021 county budget. It has been delayed again in rolling it out. And now it's set to be rolled out on September 14th. So that's Monday. And I don't have anything to say about it because it'll be the first time I see it as well. It's a public meeting at an expanded budget committee. So that was a lot tonight. There's a lot of stuff going on. That is my report. Happy to take questions if you have or comments.
Thanks, Dan. Questions for Dan?
No questions, but thanks for really taking time to go over the different voting options for folks. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
You're welcome. It's hopefully a lot of people will be repeating this. And then I guess I throw this into another thing that we should all be repeating is that the national election will probably not be decided on election day, and that people, it's probably a good idea for citizen voters to start getting used to that idea so it doesn't seem so strange when it happens, because of the amount of absentee ballots, it's going to be hard to count them all, probably not for a few weeks.
Great.
Great, thanks.
Yeah.
I'll just quickly add that I'm looped into this new intermunicipal committee that's forming to talk about broadband. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing how it can move forward. I agree, Dan, that STN is a really, has some really interesting possibilities for how to move forward. And I think, you know, as you've already indicated, that tackling this on a one-off town by town probably is not a good way to go, as opposed to looking at a much more comprehensive picture. So I'm excited about the possibilities, and yeah. And it would be great to have, I don't know, somebody from planning maybe, or, you know, Department of Planning and Sustainability or whatever, helping spearhead from the county. I agree that some sort of county coordination would be great. Is there talk of that? Is there anybody?
Yeah, so I've been talking with the planning department and trying to get them interested in playing this role, and they're reluctant. They have a very large,
Yeah, they have a full plate. Yeah.
Yeah, and reduced staff right now. However, they are big fans of this ST8 organization, this planning organization. And so they understand that ST8 requires a local lead. So they are now considering that possibility, as I understand it.
Okay, good. Yeah, I'm familiar with ST8 too, and I think they do good work. So it's good.
Great. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
All right. I'm going to move on to the next, unless, are there any updates from committees?
I'll just update that the public hearing for the revised comprehensive plan has definitively been set for September 24th at 7 p.m. and there are signs posted strategically around the town.
Yeah.
And the new task force will meet for the first time next Monday at 7 p.m.
Great.
Yep. Great. Thanks, Tim.
And I'll update that I guess those of you that are coming into the building, I've been waiting for Laura Shawley from Danby to send me their information about the logging and road use laws. And I haven't gotten anything from email. I've sent her a couple of times now saying, hey, can you send it? So maybe she's sending it by snail mail. I don't know. I don't know why it's taking so long. So if you guys see a package from Danby come in my name, let me know.
So Irene, I'm glad you brought that up. So I will, I thought I sent you a brief email about this. I don't know if I mentioned everything, but anyway, so I have two things. So I have had in my office a stack of stuff from Don
Right.
era when they were considering the local law. And I provided that to Bobby a while back. But anyway, I did speak to Joel mentioned just recently that they were actually happy with that law. It doesn't.
Yeah,
It doesn't cover agricultural operations, but they are happy with it. So anyway, Don the other day offered to, there's a huge pile of disheveled drafts that I've just had moldering in the corner since I arrived in the office. So he offered to look through that pile and anyway, he had been engaged with the former head of Cornell Local Roads, who has passed away.
I was on that committee, Mark, as was
Okay.
Bill Padilka, so I'm familiar.
Okay, so anyway, I'm just telling you, Don has offered to refresh his memory on the technical details that he was dealing with, and then he said he'd be happy to meet with me and you in about a week after he's done that to look at it. The other thing is that Barry, who is on the line here, brought me several pieces of information about regulation of logging operations. So I have that in my office too. He, I think, had been in communication with Laura Shawley as well. So I just wanted to connect the information chain there and let you know that. So.
Okay. So there was that. Then the other thing that I also wanted to just update on is I attended the Association of Towns finance meeting today. I didn't sit in for the first two sessions, but I was very interested and did attend the one on multi-year planning. And I really, really, really want to see us move in that direction. I know this year ended up being wacky. And, I know that we had, good intentions of having Bill to pick this up and do it. But I think it's just super important. There's, one set of stuff that they have for doing a 5-year capital plan, which, I think we need to start thinking about. And then in addition, after you've got your capital plan in place, and, and it involves looking at the depreciation schedules for all kinds of things. So, we put a new roof on, 3-4 years ago. Does the roof depreciate over 30 years? Well, we should be planning 30 years worth of, tucking away a little bit of money to be able to address roofs and, just various ways to manage our capital plan in an ongoing way, along with then managing our, overall budget plan on a 5-year basis. And I just think it's really, really important that we do that, especially, as
I agree.
Yeah.
So the two things, like that was one of the reasons for developing the fund balance policy, because that's really helpful in establishing a foundation for doing this kind of thing. And then I do expect by the time I bring the budget to have some sort of a rudimentary at least, but I'm going to see what we can pull together for a capital plan, either 5 or 10 years. So I have the town of Enfield's capital plan, which is really wonderful, I think. And so I'm going to use that as a model and work with Bobby to get information. I'm thinking about highway equipment right now. So, but I do think that that's something we want to do. I agree.
Yeah, so the comptroller's office site has planning documents and instructions and Excel worksheets, and you know, it's really they set it up in a way that you know, from the sounds of it at least, makes it very user friendly, and their office is also willing to provide support. So
Cool.
I think that we should take advantage of that and really make sure that we get it done.
Good. I agree. Anything else? I am trying to move along here since it's 9 o'clock. So, so with the resolution, the proposing New York State funding of rural emergency services. I provided you the text, and I provided in the town announcement. So I don't think I really need to read it unless it's by popular request. But I will read it if you want me to. But the rationale is that rural municipalities faced with a hardship with the loss of volunteer emergency services. This is it's a responsibility of local governments to provide that kind of support to their communities. It's articulated in the state constitution that provision shall be made by the state and by such subdivisions in this manner, by such to promote the health of the inhabitants of the state. So the resolved of the resolutions are that the Tompkins County Council of Governments requests that the Tompkins County Legislature will call upon the state to allocate funding to local municipalities to support the provision of this. Further resolve that TCOG requests that the legislature advocate for a CHIPS model of funding, and further resolve that the Caroline Town Board supports this proposal, and finally that the resolution shall be sent to our state representatives. So,
I'll second that.
seconded by John, and so further discussion or questions?
This makes sense to me. I mean, I think we've known for 4 or 5 years that it can't possibly be done at the municipal level for a town like Caroline. And it probably can't even really truthfully be done at the county level. I think it is going to take truly a statewide initiative.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, the details are lacking in exactly how this would work, but it would provide the resources for each municipality to work it out however they needed to, whether they had to contract with a neighboring, service provider or develop their own. So, so anyway, if there are no further questions, I'll call for a vote. And all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? So, and Irene was helpful in developing that resolution on that committee. All right. With that, I will offer a resolution to sign the 3-year joint funding agreement for the 6 Mile Creek at Brooktondale stream gauge, which begins, that new 3-year agreement begins this October.
Second.
Seconded by Irene. And further questions or discussion? This is something we've been doing for a while, and I think we all support it. So no further questions. I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Great, thank you. And with that, I'll offer a resolution authorizing the supervisor to sign the 2021, normally it's a 3-year agreement, but this year it's just going to be the 2021 Animal Control Services Agreement with SPCA, or actually with Tompkins County Animal Control for $19,798. It's the same rate it was this year.
Second.
Seconded by John. And any questions?
Just one. What's the difference in term? Is it sort of?
It's in the term of it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
from
this is
3
a
to 1.
1-year term. Normally it
Right.
would have been a 3-year term.
Yeah,
so
what's driving that?
why
Hmm?
why is it just 1 year?
Yeah, that's,
Oh, why? Yeah.
Because they want to up the rates in 2.
I don't know. I mean, I think they felt like I think it's actually not that. I think they wanted to be sensitive to the fiscal environment so that they could
But I
adjust
wondered.
it the next year. So
Mhm.
that really was the reason. Who knows? They might reduce it. So,
yeah, I wondered if it might be
Yeah.
somewhat COVID driven.
it was definitely COVID driven. Yeah, certainly was. So, okay, with that, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Okay, great. I'm glad you all support animal control. Okay, I'll offer a brief update on the license agreement. So the supervisors met with NYSEG representatives to ask questions and provide feedback on the license agreement. One question had been about the original license agreement provided for a 10-year initial term followed by 5-year like automatic renewal periods. And so we asked if that could be, that seemed like a short amount of time, and it actually seemed to promote it. Mike Smith, who works on grants for this, thought that could complicate grant funding applications, so that we needed a longer term. So we proposed a 20-year initial term with 5-year renewal periods after that, and they seemed amenable to that. There was also a provision in the license agreement for a 120-day notice period for if NYSEG could give 120 days notice for the town to remove any installed infrastructure. That would not include the surface. And so we asked if that could be a longer period of time. And then the other kind of question I had was, how likely is that, and is recreational trail use compatible with uses that NYSEG might have? And in most cases, they've said yes, that they could coexist quite easily. So so that was reassuring. So we are now waiting for feedback from NYSEG on that to see if they're amenable to those changes, and to see if they would modify the 120-day notice period, provide a longer notice period. So that's pretty much what it is. We asked about other towns that have comparable agreements, and they did mention another town that I can't remember the town now, but I'm planning to circle back to them and see how long that's been going on and how it's been working. So anyway, we hope to hear back fairly soon and have a license agreement worked out. Any questions? Or if you have questions later, email me questions or whatever you want. The town of Dryden they signed the original license agreement, so we didn't have too many qualms with that. But
And Danby, where's Danby at?
and Caroline, we're all the same. We're all in this conversation waiting for more information on this. So,
Okay.
Thank you.
yeah, you're welcome. And another question we asked is about whether the town could own the property. So, but after I'm not that concerned about ownership now. After I feel fairly like they were very supportive of the trail, and they say they do these. They support trail initiatives in other areas. So yeah.
Okay.
So I'll let you know what falls out. Hopefully pretty soon. Doesn't seem like that much to chew on. So.
So shifting gears and speaking of owning property, what's happening with the wetland?
Nothing's happened, Irene. I know I've tried to get everybody's. That's something we could discuss if you want.
But she hasn't gotten back to us with any updates on her end either, then I gather.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think she gave us a, that was some time ago. She gave us a modified, whatever that agreement was, but, she's not gotten back to us on any of the questions that we had last time. So,
and it's really in her court.
But we have been, I am overdue, we need to connect. So I will connect with her before the end of the week and see where things are at and trade thoughts. So
Okay,
I'll
great.
let you know.
Thanks.
Yeah. Great. Okay.
A lot
Let's
of
see.
balls in the air, Mark. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. You're welcome. Let's see if I can find it. So I would like to offer a budget transfer resolution for the following transfers. $2,000 from A 1910.4 contingency to A 1420.3 legal. $17,500 from DA 5140.1 miscellaneous personnel services to DA 5110.1 general repairs personnel services, and $2,000 from DA 5140.1 miscellaneous personnel services to DA 5110.11 general repairs overtime. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Tim, and
Get my second in for the evening.
yeah.
Velvet, make sure.
So the first one was just to, to cover the legal expenses that we'll be covering tonight, and the other two were just moving money between personnel lines in the highway budget. So just moving things around. If there are no further questions, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great. Thank you. And now I will offer a resolution to pay the town bills for highway, general fund, and lighting. And I don't know why I put fire protection in the agenda announcement, but it's not supposed to be there. So in the amount for the A fund, in the amount of $26,644.28. The highway fund in the amount of $68,650.02. And the street light fund in the amount of $1,058.98. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Cal.
Irene's stealing my move.
So I just realized that I was supposed to do vouchers. Got so overwhelmed with finishing my book in the task force This, when did I just realize this?
I think
I don't
you're
know if
okay,
it-
Tim.
I don't think it was
don't
your
worry
turn,
about it.
Tim. Yeah.
I'm glad
Is
to
the
hear
book
you finished your
finished?
book.
Yeah,
Finishing your book as in something you're writing or something you were reading?
I'm writing for like
writing,
6
yeah.
years.
Cool.
Nice.
Congrats.
Congrats.
The time was better spent.
Well,
Yep.
I apologize. I just can't believe that.
I'm not sure it's you, Tim. I think it might have been me and Cal this week.
Oh, it
or
was?
month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like it was. Yeah. I think
I
you're
think-
fine.
I
Yeah.
feel guilty for no reason. It's my it's my
Well,
mother's fault.
I
No, I
think you're
didn't-
okay, Tim. Yeah.
Yeah, I did them for you last month because you were away, and
Yeah.
I didn't expect to flip flop on it.
Okay, well, I thought it was, so my
Yeah.
bad.
No.
No, I think you're good. So I don't think I called for a vote on paying the bills. So
You
all
did.
in,
Pay the
All in
bill.
favor?
Yay.
All right.
okay, opposed, abstained. Good. Thank you for paying the bills. There was one question that Cal had about the health insurance. So yeah, we should pay those bills in full, and it's adjusted in the future. So based on changes in employee status and stuff, the consortium will make the changes to the they'll either reimburse or whatever. So we're good. Just the way it works. Motion to approve the minutes of September 1st. Anybody want to second that?
I'd be glad to.
Irene beat you. So
Okay.
I thought the minutes looked fine. Anybody have feedback for Jesse or that? Call for a vote. All in favor of approving the September 1st minutes?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. And now I would like to have a brief discussion of the Brookton's Cemetery, which has a public hearing on the same exact day and time as our public hearing on the comprehensive plan. So I did send out some minutes from 2015 today. So I hope you got those. I thought they were really helpful, refreshing my memory on just everything.
Yeah.
Cal and I talked about this. Cal brought it up. I do think it would be good for the town, for us as a town board to think about our position on the cemetery. So
What does that mean? If they abandon it, it's ours. Our position, I would think, is that we hope they don't abandon it.
my understanding is there's another option where the town could actually take ownership and do more than manage it at a minimal level. But
I don't think we should. I don't think we should.
I don't want to be in the cemetery business. Think
I don't either. So I'm just saying we should be clear about our position. What I
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say from my perspective, that's a non-starter.
Okay.
But if certain things happen, we don't have any choice.
Well,
And we just got to make sure those things don't happen, or try to make sure they don't happen.
Could you clarify, Cal?
It's a non-for-profit corporation.
Right.
Basically the CEO there now is just kind of wanting to walk away.
Right.
And I don't feel that the directors, trustees of the cemetery, they feel overwhelmed with the size of the endowment they have to keep up the level of care for that cemetery that everybody's come to expect. They're in a death spiral. And
Right.
they just see the town, abandoning it to the town is maybe an option. I think we have to wait. We can assist things like they're just increasingly more expenses. They now have to pay workman's compensation for people that are mowing the lawn. They have to pay unemployment. They have to pay paid family leave. Accounting, cemetery reports, annual cemetery reports are just getting more. There's just more paperwork, more requirements for a cemetery association to meet. And I think they're just getting tired of it. And returns on endowments. I mean, maybe, I don't want to say that maybe there's been mismanagement, but just what you can charge for grave sites, what you need to pay for maintenance of mowing equipment, and some remuneration to people for doing the work. And it's an expensive cemetery piece of property to upkeep.
Well, Cal, can I?
Yeah.
I mean, you're kind of farther down the road than I wanted to ask. I mean, it seems like the issue now is there's a board that doesn't want to be a board anymore.
That's part of the issue, yes.
But do you think there are other people who would step up?
I think so.
So,
just as the example, when we talked the other day, to refresh the rest of the board members, when Cooper Cemetery, it was kind of under the care of Orson Ledger. He just kind of took care of everything on that little cemetery, and then he was so discourteous as to go and die, and it just kind of got just nobody there to just arrange mowing or a grave being dug if somebody wanted to be buried there, and taking care of filing reports with the Division of Cemeteries, and they come find you if they aren't getting their regular reports. So, somebody, after a couple of years and some hand wringing on our part, somebody stepped up and formed a, not-for-profit corporation and has taken on the maintenance and upkeep and perpetual care of the cemetery. And I would like to think that was, that the Brookton Cemetery has been for a long time in the care and guidance of the Quick family, and that legacy is coming to an end. And I think it will get picked up by, there are committed people within the community that I think will step up and take the reins, if you will. I think the existing powers just have to lay down the reins first.
okay.
Well, Cal, I think that would be an optimal scenario, right? If the town takes it over, the only scenario I envision, and it's not one I would like to see, but it would be, sort of the bare bones minimum, mow it 3 times a year, and I think we'd be required to fence it, and so I would say if there's interest in the community to have more than that, I would say, if there are folks that are willing to take that up, I think, I would certainly want to hear if there are ways the town can be supportive, much like when the other group tried to get the other cemetery going, right? But that would, I think someone taking it over would be the optimal scenario.
I mean, it's a bit hard because if the town starts helping one cemetery, then maybe Cooper Cemetery says, well, why won't you help us out too? I mean, help out,
Well, help doesn't necessarily mean financial, but it might be directing toward resources or, just helping
or whatever.
navigate. Right.
So, but I think we have to be
support.
careful of what we do for one, whatever resources, financial.
No, I'm not suggesting financial.
Yeah, well, I just, maybe in a way of, like with one example that's floated, like even within the Division of Cemeteries, is workman's compensation. The town can get so much better a rate that they let it go through, the cemetery still pays the bill or reimburses the town for it, but
That could.
I believe we do something like that for our fire departments, don't we?
Yeah.
So that when I say support, that's the type of stuff I'm talking about.
Yeah, and when I say financial support, I'm just meaning in the sense of offering, or just, insure, you need some
Mhm.
liability insurance, and, it can get added to the towns for $125, and they go out and try and get it themselves, and they have to pay $1,000.
Right. Yeah, I hear that. I think to the degree that we can reasonably support
Yeah,
community
I mean,
entities, I think that's good.
we,
How many active cemeteries are there in the town? Cooper, is Mulks active, or are there others?
Garrett Mandeville, Caroline Center
Mhm.
is active,
Yep.
Caroline Grove. I'd say there's 5 or 6,
Mhm.
just off the top of my head.
Yeah,
Sounds
I mean,
You got the Speedsville Cemetery,
Mhm.
community cemetery down in Speedsville. We've got two right here close in Slaterville, one in Caroline, one in Speedsville, one in Caroline Center. 2 in Brooktondale.
yeah,
So-
these kinds of financial support that we can provide access to. It's not
Yeah.
direct financial
Yeah,
support.
Right.
But
I agree.
if we can, and I do think that if we do it for one, we should offer it to all.
Mhm.
I mean, I think we should focus on what we think the solution is for Brookton Cemetery, which is to recruit a viable board. You don't think that's right, Cal?
As a town board, but as a town board member and concerned citizen, I'm certainly willing to do what I can to, but I mean, I just feel we want to be careful on it.
Oh, you're trying to steer clear of taking a position on that?
No, not taking a position, but as with the kind of going, the town board is trying to find people to.
Oh, no, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm not
Yeah.
advocating that at all. No, I agree.
So, I mean, for the other board members, I've told Mark, I mean, my parents and grandparents are buried there.
Mhm.
And, a lot of long-term Brooktondale, Caroline residents are. And I think something will, it's not like it's going to be handed off like a relay race. But the people that have been taking care of it have been doing such a great job for so long. And I think they just want to hand it off to somebody. And
But what are you saying that it basically has to get dropped and then
Yes, I am.
picked back up again? I mean, how would
Yes.
that happen?
I don't know. I just think that's, I don't know. I mean, I just think that's what's going to happen. They're going to, the existing management is going to have to let go. And
Legally, what's the process for them letting go?
Right.
well, yeah, stepping down is, and somebody new just picking up and calling a meeting of people that are interested in the continuation of the Brookton Cemetery not-for-profit.
Well, maybe this is a question for a call to Brendan Stanton to ask him the
Yep.
dynamic. I mean, we can't be the first town where this kind of dynamic has happened.
Right.
So.
And so are you saying that both the director and all of the board all want to quit?
The director wants to be free of free of the one in charge of it. He just wants to step away. He's older. He's done it for a long time.
So
It's time.
are you informed of kind of, I mean, he brought this to us in 2015. That was 5 years ago. Have
Yep.
they been having active conversations about, hey, who wants to do this next? No? Or that would just seem natural.
we're starting to get into some of those sort of personnel things that I feel kind of
Okay.
I just,
Personality things? Or, okay.
yeah.
You don't have to say. Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
and it's just Cal Snow's opinion, and but
Cal Snow knows a lot.
well, he knows a little bit. So.
So do we want to draft something to provide? This is a public hearing, so do we want to draft something from the town to present at the public hearing?
You mean at their public meeting, their annual meeting on the 24th?
Right. It's not a. Is it not a public hearing on this, or?
Well, it's just an annual meeting, and anybody
Okay.
can. I mean, I guess I'm getting caught up in the words. It's just the
Yeah. Well,
annual.
maybe.
It's
Yeah.
the annual meeting of the Brookton Cemetery. It's done a formal name change.
Yeah.
Cal, how many people usually go to this annual meeting, out of curiosity, roughly?
20,
Wow.
15
Maybe
or 20.
more this year. What do you think?
I think there will be, yes, more this year.
Hopefully they can have a conversation amongst themselves about proactive ways of moving forward.
What are we going to do to keep this going? And because we don't want the town taking it over, because it's just going to fall into disrepair.
Minimal repair.
Well, yeah, but they're going to be.
And does it pay to talk to the guy from the Department of State who does the cemetery stuff and have him attend the meeting, or, be available to answer questions so that, a process can be set in place?
That's not a bad idea.
That's a very good idea. There's an auditor out of Binghamton. We'll get a hold of him this week.
Yeah,
Oh, really?
it just seems like, it sounds like one of the questions that maybe people need to know is, how do you pass the torch? How do you, does somebody literally have to lay it down before somebody else picks it up? And if that's what has to happen, how do you do that? So it just seems like, maybe some preliminary conversations so that you kind of know what you're in for, and then, potentially have somebody available at the meeting.
Yeah. I mean, I think, you start looking at things, the size of your endowment, the return of your endowment, your grave sales, and what it would cost now to have the trimming and mowing done. And I think they're just over, it's not a viable
Sure.
not-for-profit.
Yeah.
I mean,
I understand that there's financial challenges in maintaining it, but
yeah, and it's just, so.
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea, of having someone from the state on hand.
And yeah, I mean, they're dealing with this in a lot of places.
yeah, I'm sure they are. I don't know what's possible in the way of fundraising, right? But nonprofits can fundraise.
Yep. It's one of the things we just, at Caroline Center Cemetery, we just sent out, a letter to the people that we knew that had been buried recently. And it was surprising the amount of the response that we got. This was probably 5-10 years ago.
Mhm.
It really helped. It bumped up our endowment quite a bit.
Great.
So,
That's an idea. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we've possibly taking this one as far as we can take it tonight.
That
Yep.
sounds good. Okay, I think we should move on. So so I will now offer a motion to enter executive session.
Second.
Oh,
Oh,
second.
sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. I told you the reason already, but it's
Yeah.
to discuss personnel matters. So, seconded by John. All in favor?
All right.
Opposed? Great. Thanks everybody for coming. And Barry gets credit for sticking it out. So let's see. And actually,
Right?
so Cal, I would like to call this executive session without you.
Recording
Okay.
first.
So,
Mark, we need to stop recording.
All right, bye.
Oh,
That's
yeah, and Velvet leaving too?
yeah.
Okay.
See you, Velvet. I'll
See you
remember.
tomorrow.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
See you tomorrow,
Velvet,
Velvet.
thanks,
In the morning.
thanks for doing this.
You're welcome. No problem.
I'm gonna stop recording.